Yeah, you can't do the intro on the first take. It's not allowed. All right, Panther fans, you're listening to the Full of Pitt podcast, season 4, episode 2, recorded Sunday, April 5th, 2020. As always, joined by Rob at BadaBang94 in the upper left corner.
Actually, upper right corner on the screen that's being recorded.
Oh, well, okay. I'm going to do this a third time then.
No, it's fine. Just keep going.
No, I'm going to do it from the beginning because I'm not going to use that reference.
Okay.
Alrighty, Panther fans, you're listening to the Full of Pitt podcast at Full of Pitt on Twitter, season 4, episode 2, recorded Sunday, April 5th, 2020. As always, joined by Rob at BadaBang94 on Twitter. For the folks that can't see this podcast, you want to say something, Rob?
Nope.
Thanks. Hi. And Matt at Saxman4L on Twitter.
Stay the F at home.
Ian at Ian_O'Neill on Twitter.
For those of you listening on your phones or whatever devices, Steve alluded that we are also being recorded in a video format. So check out YouTube.
That's right. And we forget our YouTube channel, but I'm sure Ian will edit it in post-production somehow.
Yeah.
It's probably some variant of Full of Pitt.
Yeah, that would be my guess. And me at FOP Steve on Twitter. This episode, we're going to talk about Ian's a pickle. We're going to talk about Ian being a pickle. We're also going to talk about coronavirus, which is sweeping the nation and the world. And we're going to talk about rewatching the 2016 Pitt versus Clemson game in Death Valley, where the Panthers shocked the world, taking down number 2 Clemson. And at the time, it looked like they were going to knock them out of the college football playoff contention. So to start things off, let's talk about coronavirus. For those of you that are watching this on YouTube, we are all in our homes. We are not in the FOP studios, except for me. I'm in the FOP studios because I live in the FOP studios. So what's everyone doing to get over this? How many weeks has it been since we've been on lockdown mode?
I've worked from home for 3 straight weeks now, which is very weird.
Yeah.
So I was in Colorado for a week before that. And yes, I know it's weird to talk to a pickle. So I feel like I have not really been in contact with another human except for people on like the chairlift and talking to bartenders and stuff in like a month and a half. So March was the longest year of my life.
Oh, by the way, Ian, I don't know if I forget if I sent you a text or a Snapchat reply, but thank you for sending that postcard. You sent me a beautiful little postcard that's hanging on my fridge right now from Breckenridge. I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Yes, actually, yes, Matt is now holding up his, and
I also got one. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Postcards. So I was thinking of you guys even from afar.
Yeah. I was so jealous of you, Ian. If I didn't have big meetings that week, which ended up getting canceled, they were like in-person meetings in Pittsburgh, I would have totally just taken a last-minute week vacation to go out to Colorado and ski.
Well, yeah. Steve, you can go now. You can get flights for like $50 round trip.
Are you still able to fly domestically?
You can buy flights, yeah.
I think so. I mean,
they haven't grounded domestic travel.
It's very cheap.
None of the ski resorts are open out there, so
they're not.
Fly to Denver, and that'd be about it.
Who needs a ski resort? There's mountains everywhere. Go blaze your own trail.
That's right. I could hike up a mountain for like 5 hours, do one run, then go back to the hotel.
I'm sure you can find someone who owns a snowmobile to you up and down a few times for a couple $100.
That's true.
Talk about fresh powder, man.
Yeah. Yeah, if I wasn't kicking off a new project on Monday, then I seriously might do that. I didn't know there was domestic travel, but oh well. I have to say, if it wasn't for not being able to see you guys and see my other buddies, during the weekends, I wouldn't even know. And I didn't have a TV or internet access. I wouldn't even know that coronavirus is happening because I work from home anyway.
So if life was entirely different than what it at all is at any point in time, I wouldn't know this is real.
Exactly.
Classic.
Luckily, being on my motorcycle has kept me sane. That's something you don't need people to do.
Yeah, Steve texted me last weekend? Hey, don't be afraid. That's me outside. And I was getting into the shower, and I texted him, I would come out and say hi to you, but I'm currently occupied. So I snuck into the room and sent a Snapchat.
No, you didn't say that you were currently occupied. You said that you were butt ass naked.
Not wrong.
Sometimes there's a difference. In this case,
But it was nice. Did get to talk to you and your wife after you got out of the shower, which is nice.
And clothed.
Yes, unfortunately. What about you, Matt?
I've been doing a little reorganizing around the house, trying to get some stuff in order. A lot of walking, a lot of walks.
nice.
And started just really listening to my vinyls and trying to do some art stuff. So,
Art
trying to
stuff?
make good use of the time.
What kind of art stuff?
Oh, just I'm working on a card for a friend at the moment. We were supposed to go see a concert, and so that didn't work out, unfortunately. So just making the card be like, it sucks. Hopefully they reschedule it.
Speaking of concerts being canceled, I think we were all planning to go to Zach Brown this summer. Is that right?
I wasn't.
Everyone except Matt. I think Ian, you were planning, and Rob, you ordered the tickets. And in Zach Brown kind of spirit, Ian is now a multicolored bearded man. So I like that filter a lot.
Yeah, so that got canceled, and then Matt and I also had tickets to Foo Fighters in May, which has been rescheduled to October. So I guess we'll see them then.
At least you still get to see him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
What have you been doing, Robert?
yeah.
Just working, school. It really doesn't feel any different, just that I don't go to the office and don't go to the classroom. Just doing it all in our house.
Yeah. The weekends are tough, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I guess you've got class and you've got homework on the weekends. Were you doing anything else to, like, pass the time?
I mowed the grass yesterday. We've been having campfires in our backyard, so that's nice. Like Ian, I was traveling directly before this all happened, which was awesome. We were in Mexico, and then we came back and the world ended. So, and I've been running, as Ian was motioning there. It's been a very interesting experience.
How is that progressing? Can you tell us about what you're training for and where you're at?
So I was going to run the Marathon Weekend 5K race, and so I'm training for a 5K, which might sound a bit ridiculous, but I'm not in a great starting point to run a 5K right now, which Steve, I think on the last recording, claimed I could just run a 5K out of nowhere. And that is not true. Because
You could. You honestly could. It would hurt a lot. You would be in extreme pain, but you could do it.
So I've been running 3 times a week, and it averages about 30 minutes total when you consider the warm-up and cool-down phases. And I'm using this app called C25K. I think the C stands for couch. And it works you up in increments of like different intervals of running and then walking to build up your cardiovascular strength. So I'm currently at a mix of 90-second run and a 90-second walk, and then a 3-minute run with a 3-minute walk. And the first 2 times I did that were very painful. My side felt like it was going to explode.
I have a question about the run, because like I found I was not a distance runner before. I used to play soccer, and I'll talk about it in a second. But I found that for me, I was bad at running before, just without doing a sport. If I was just running by myself, I was very bad at it, but because I realized I didn't have the pacing right. I was pushing way too hard. When you say you're doing like the 90-second run, 90-second walk, like how fast are you actually running?
Oh, not very fast. I can't run very fast to begin with, and I'm not exerting myself very much.
Okay, so it's just like a comfortable like jogging pace. It's
not
fast. Okay.
No, I'm not like sprinting up and down the streets here.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That would be funny to watch though, as like a neighbor, just like Rob, like sprinting and then stopping and walking for a little bit.
Dead stop and just, again. That's probably stuff that gets the cops called on.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a guy with a ventilator mask who just finished mowing his lawn and now is sprinting down the street. And then, he's walking now. Oh no, he's sprinting again.
Don't worry, we've been getting these calls about every 90 seconds for the past half hour.
So Rob, with all that, how far are you in your? So I'm assuming you set like an end date of the actual 5K. Are you like kind of in your training progression? Are you ahead of that in your training progression?
I'm like on schedule to have run it that marathon weekend. I have it paced so that I would finish. Like, I think there's 8 weeks of training, but I would do those 8 weeks of training in 7 weeks. And by doing it every other day and not resting 4 days every week, but only resting 3 days, it like cuts out a week and a half over the whole time. And then the last thing on the training thing in the app is like you actually run the 5K. So
5K.
I'm just trusting the app to get me there. So in about a month, like maybe when this quarantine's over, I'll be able to run 3 miles without any stopping, which would be unbelievable to me, but we'll see what happens.
You'll be in good shape till you meet the murderer that runs 3.1 miles nonstop.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I've been training to run a half marathon, and so I played soccer since I was 3, but I never liked running. I always hated running, and so I got this Nike Run Club app that one of my buddies recommended to me, and it seemed I really liked it, and the feedback it would give me during my run, and kind of the instructions on everything, and the pacing and everything like that. And so I had a similar plan where I said, all right, this is when my race is. I need to run this distance, and then what's my height, weight, and experience. Then it just created it all custom.
Oh.
And so you can do that with like any distance. It'll be like, hey, I want to be able to run this far and this time. And you could even say like, hey, I want to get this specific time of my race. And it'll even adjust some things there, because there's all these different types of workout, like long runs, like sprint interval runs, like all these different things that are in the plan. But anyway, so yesterday on Saturday, April 4th, I was scheduled to run in my plan 11.5 miles, which would have been the farthest run I'd ever done. I think the farthest run I had done before that was 10 miles, which at the time was the farthest I'd ever run. And so I figured, hey, with the whole marathon being closed and now you can just run it virtually, so just enter your time, whenever you hit it. I figured, might as well tack on an extra 1.6 miles if I'm already 1.5 miles in, which I did. So I ran my first half marathon technically yesterday. And
wow.
My knees hurt a lot today. And so does like my right hip and my left foot. But other than that, it felt pretty good.
Other than the pain I'm in,
Other than the pain that I'll probably be in for the next 2 days, I feel pretty good.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you, man.
Well done.
Yeah, I am going to run it again. So for everyone who donated, so I was running this half marathon for the Veterans Leadership Program, which is an organization that helps veterans in Southwestern Pennsylvania, whether it's like financial assistance, like buying a home, getting a job. They do a bunch of different things. If you're interested in donating, I'll tweet out on my Twitter at FOPSteve where you can go and donate, because because the whole marathon is still like going up through May 3rd, you can still donate. And for those who already did donate, I said I would carry an American flag the entire way of my half marathon. Since yesterday was kind of my impromptu half marathon, I will be running another half marathon before May 3rd with the flag. And we'll see if I can get some like people to bike part of it with me, because I want to get some video footage out of this as well.
Please let us know if you plan on doing this.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do it not next week, because I'll actually be in Philadelphia, but I think either the weekend after or the weekend after that. Whenever I'm back in Pittsburgh for that weekend, that's when I'm going to do it, and I'll have this very interesting costume, or I would just say outfit, that I'm going to wear, and hope to get some video content out of it.
Excellent.
I will definitely ride bike and try to do something like, get out up there in front of you and then like, take some video, going by. But you should also try to find someone who has a drone and have it like follow you the entire time. Because you can just run through downtown, like there's no one there. Just run on the roads and have the drone like follow you the entire time.
It'd be awesome to get like multiple angles. So like a guy on the bike and then a guy and then the drone. And I don't have any GoPro stuff, but it could even have like some little boom that's like attached to me that is like is looking at me as I'm running. But
are you going to glitter your beard red, white, and blue when you do this?
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. You should definitely do that.
I might do it on the sides, but I would not do it in my mustache or like around my mouth, because like I would just feel like I would just inhale a bunch of glitter and it would be detrimental.
Steve only does that on Saturday nights, not on runs.
Right, exactly. Ian knows what's up. And Ian, what have you been doing besides schoolwork?
A lot of work, a lot of school.
Because this is where we started.
Oh, well, I've been exercising a little bit. I've been going out to the Monroeville Mall. For any of those people that live in the suburbs or the city and just want to sort of get away from their same four walls for a little while, I would encourage finding an ancient ruin, sort of like that.
It's the eighth wonder of the world.
Yes.
Monroeville Mall.
No, that is Century 3 Mall.
Oh, that's a great point. Actually, Century 3 would be a pretty good one too.
What are you doing in this abandoned mall?
Well, so I'm not actually going inside because it's closed, obviously. But like the perimeter, the road around the mall is about 2 kilometers. So I've been going there, and it's been empty. No one.
What does that equate to in American?
About
0.9.
mile and a quarter. 1.25. You just run in the middle of the street.
Rob, you said that with such confidence, and we're.
Was it backwards? Wait, you said 2 kilometers, right?
Yeah.
So how many kilometers are in a mile?
Because then a 5K would only end up being like.
A 5K is like 3-something miles, right?
3.1.
Yeah, you'd only be at 2.2.
Math is hard. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've proven time and time again that math is not our strong suit here.
Speak for yourselves.
Yeah, clearly not. But yeah, a little bit of other stuff. I've been doing some organizing and cleaning like Matt, and watching a lot of Netflix. I watched Tiger King. Is everybody up on Tiger King?
I'm not done with it yet.
I haven't seen it.
Episodes.
Is it how many episodes?
7? 8?
Something like that. Apparently they're coming out with another episode.
Are they?
Apparently.
It's a pretty quick turnaround, Steve. You could knock it out in a couple weeks if you really wanted to take it slow. I mean, if you binge the whole thing, you could do it in a day.
Yeah.
2 kilometers is 1.24 miles.
Suck it, Rob.
I was just doing the same thing.
I just went on Google. But yeah, so Tiger King. It seems to be sweeping the internet and the globe.
Yeah.
Just like coronavirus.
Yeah.
I started watching this.
Is there a connection?
Show. I don't know. Did Joe Exotic start the coronavirus? I'm not saying he didn't, but I'm not saying he did.
I mean, that's an interesting strategy to like force everyone inside in order to force you to watch your show.
So basically, Amazon Prime and Netflix are the reason for coronavirus. They worked with the Chinese and the bat population in Wuhan to, work their magic.
You know what? I want to say those companies are above that, but I really don't think that's the truth.
Not at all.
No. I started this really cool show. You guys ever heard of Game of Thrones?
No.
You should check it out. It's got like naked people and dragons. Well, the dragons are coming. I've been told that. But I've seen them. They're just real little right now. But yeah, the fighting and death, and Peter Dinklage is in it. So if that's your kink, you're solid. Like
kink shaming is my kink.
Yeah, I'm almost done with season 3. It's pretty litty.
I got onto the marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Amazon Prime. Awesome show. Anybody who likes stand-up, you should watch this show. It's basically about this woman in the 50s in New York City trying to make it in stand-up comedy. It's a really awesome show.
I heard that season 3 just came out.
Yeah, season 3 is out. Yeah, I'm on season 2 right now.
Okay, I haven't started season 3. I'll have to get that at some point.
Mm-hmm. Ozark is another good show. You should check out on Netflix.
Is that about the serial killer or something?
No, kind of the setup of it is he was unknowingly involved in a money laundering scheme, and so now he is living in the Ozarks, trying to raise enough money to pay back the guy they were stealing from, so him and his family don't get killed.
So, all right, Matt, you've watched Ozark. Ian and Rob, have you watched Ozark?
I have not.
Okay, Matt, don't answer this. The Ozark, I believe, is a mountain range, right? Or Matt, you can answer that. The Ozark is a mountain. Okay. Now, don't answer this. Where are the Ozarks? And Ian and Rob, if you know this, like, raise your hand if you definitively know this.
Definitively no.
Okay, so let's guess where the Ozark mountain range is, because I have no idea. I am going to guess Wyoming.
I am
And
guessing.
I don't feel good about it.
I think it's in Missouri, which is weird. Rob?
North Dakota.
I was thinking Dakotas. All right, Matt, where are the Ozark Mountains?
So it is primarily in Missouri, but it also reaches into Arkansas and Oklahoma.
Nice one, Ian.
But the
Very
show
nice.
itself takes place in Missouri.
Gotcha.
Missouri.
Because he's in Missouri, so they made it in Missouri.
That makes sense.
Look at that. Well, you know who wasn't in Missouri? The Pitt Panthers, when they went down to Clemson, South Carolina in 2016.
Well, I don't know.
To take on the number 2 ranked football team in the country at that time.
I
Nailed
don't know,
it.
Steve. I would say that they were in a bit of misery.
Why is that,
Tell us
Matt?
about that, Matt.
Yeah, so I mean, leading up into this season, this was kind of a interesting year for the Panthers. So obviously, that was the renewal of the Pitt-Penn State rivalry, and Pitt ended up winning that first game 42-39. But then, they ended up suffering a bunch of just horrible losses. So they played at Oklahoma State, got screwed over by that lightning delay, lost all the momentum, lost 45-38. We lost to North Carolina yet again in heartbreaking fashion. And then going into the Clemson game, we had just come off 2 straight losses, a 3-point loss to Virginia Tech, and then a 23-point loss to Miami.
That was in
Spirits
Miami.
were not high amongst the fan base. I know I was like, we're going to get destroyed. Just pummeled.
Yeah. But so just to give a little bit of context about why we're talking about it, Ian, was it you that had the idea?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you give us a little bit of context as to why we're talking about this?
Well, it's sort of a dark time in the world for a lot of people. So I was trying to think of some discussion topics that might bring some fonder memories back to all of us in this dark moment. And I asked the guys, I polled the audience, if you could only watch one Pitt game for the rest of time, what would it be? And I don't think it was unanimous, but it seemed like the consensus was 2016 Clemson was either the first or second choice for the group.
What were some of the other choices?
2016 Penn State, so earlier in that same season. I think it was Rob who threw out the 2007 Backyard Brawl.
Mm-hmm.
And this is football. This is not including basketball or otherwise. And it's really just in sort of our lifetimes as fans as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when I'm thinking about Pitt football and good memories involving the team, like this is one of the ones that I jump to almost right off the bat. Like I mean, we'll get into it. The Chris Blewett made field goal from like 50 whatever yards. That just like that moment of ecstasy in the stadium with our little group was like one of the highest moments I've had as a Pitt fan. So
Looking at you, Steve.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, actually, 3 of the 4 of us were there.
Yeah.
All
Good
4 of
time.
us were there.
I do not remember you being there.
well, what are we, like 10 or 15 minutes in? I'm surprised it took us this long to get to the show.
One of the 4 of us actually like went to the bars in Clemson after the game, which I was initially terrified to do because we were all decked out in Pitt gear. And I was just like, oh my gosh, they're going to hate us. Like, we're going to get in a fight. This is going to be bad. But honestly, the fans couldn't have been nicer. And we were in like the college town. Like these are the college students and, some alumni there. And they were just so, so nice. But I just remember with a few minutes left in the fourth quarter, the whole game, I was just thinking, we're not going to win this. Like, this is just, we're going down to see Clemson and all the stuff that is Clemson and what a Clemson football game is like. And that was just in my mind the whole time. I had no expectations of winning, which is rare for Pitt football games because I'm just so emotionally attached to this team. But I think it was with like 3 minutes left when it flipped in my brain, and I was like, oh my gosh, we might actually win this thing. And it was a heck of an ending, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead,
sorry.
Rob.
Well, just on that thought, like Steve said, it was like 3 minutes left. I had that moment at 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I distinctly remember feeling that and looking at the clock. There was 5 minutes left. And that's all I had to say about that. But yeah, it was crazy.
I think
Before we talk too much about – oh, sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was just going to say, you talked about going out to the bars. I think, one of my favorite parts of this game, other than the actual game itself, was the lead up to it, which, started in the tailgate. Well, actually the day before even the tailgates. So I remember we got down there and we went on to Clemson's campus just to kind of explore. And it was a really weird feeling that day because there was a big wildfire burning in Georgia.
Mm.
And for those of you unfamiliar with the map, Clemson is like just over the Georgia border. It's really close. And so the wind was blowing all the smoke towards Clemson. So there was this weird haze. It smelled like you were just in a campfire the whole time. It's just really, really bizarre on campus that day. I remember when we visited. But, yeah.
Litty titties, my brother.
Yeah. So, I mean.
Yeah, I remember driving in and smelling that. But I think that was the day before, right?
Yeah,
I don't think that was the day of, right?
Yeah, day before.
I think there was still a bit of a haze the day of the game because if you watch the Pitt Livewire video, which maybe they took this from the day before, they do like a drone shot where they fly over a lake, and you can definitely tell there's like a haze that's hanging there to some extent.
I'm pretty sure that was from the day before because I remember the day of the game, like the wind must have changed directions because it was a gorgeous day outside.
Mm-hmm. It got cold though towards the end of the game when the sun dropped. I remember feeling it dropped like 15 or 20 degrees or something. It was noticeable.
Yeah, I remember. But our tailgate was lit as always. I think my favorite moment from the tailgate. So we're just hanging out drinking. All of a sudden, this Clemson fan comes walking through the tailgates. He's got like a bottle of Gentleman Jack in one hand and a bottle of 1800 tequila in the other.
He was just walking around with two handles of liquor.
Yeah.
Like game day.
Just walks up to you. Welcome to Clemson, y'all. You want a shot?
It's rude to say no.
Absolutely. We lined him up. We did a shot. We talked with the guy for a minute. He's about to leave. He looks at his bottle again of the tequila, and he's like, I don't really want to carry this with me. You want to do another? So we finished off the bottle of tequila before he went on his merry way.
I had a similar experience. I have a friend who I graduated high school with who went down there. She was there for the game. We walked over to their tailgate, and I think they only had like 4 or 5 people. And they had like a full bar set up. It's like, oh, like, you guys bring this for every game? It's like, yeah, that's not going to be there when we leave. It's like, whoa. Okay.
So for the tailgate, I had actually gotten strep throat earlier in the week leading up to Clemson. And so I was on antibiotics for that whole time.
You were on what?
I was on antibacterial medication to relieve myself from strep throat. And so I couldn't drink, which sucked. But the nice thing was the group that I had gone down with, they didn't have to pay for a single Uber the entire trip because I was their designated driver the whole time. We actually road tripped, stopped in Columbus, Ohio, stayed there a night, then went down to Nashville, stayed there a night, and then we drove down to Clemson. So we kind of like road tripped it, which was nice. And then just a 9 and change hour drive straight back after the game. But yeah, it sucked not being able to fully partake in the tailgate festivities.
But yet you went to the bars afterwards.
Yeah, we went to the bars, but I didn't drink anything. I was literally just standing there talking with the group that I was with and stuff. So, I mean, it was still awesome. Like, it was still an amazing experience, and the fans were super nice. Even the fans behind us in the game were super nice. We were chatting with them the whole game. So it was just a great time, and yeah, I guess we won't play them there for.
We don't know the date.
Yeah.
It's going to be at least in the next rotation, but it could be the first game of the next rotation. So it could be as little as like 7 years from now, but it could be as long as 14 years from now.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Crazy stuff.
maybe even longer, right?
Because they add more teams.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Right, because that's such a long period of time. They could realign and stuff.
Yeah, we're in the.
It also could be a lot shorter though, because there's always the talk of moving to a 9 conference game slate.
Yep, but we have this year and then 5 more in the current schedule projection that they have done. Because we played Boston College last year at home, so that was the first game of the second run through of the new ACC structure.
This is a rabbit hole we can go down
crossover games
later.
Yeah, but actually, starting out for the actual game itself, we all watched, I think, the same 30-minute condensed full game, right, on YouTube to just relive it. So the YouTube video actually starts with Pitt up 7-0.
Cut out the whole first drive.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Weak.
So
yeah,
I honestly don't remember what happened on that first drive, but there must have been some massive play because it was only like a minute and change or 2 minutes into the game, when this video starts. Do any of you remember how we actually scored?
Yeah, so there's 2 key plays. There's a Jamar Parrish swing pass that he gained like 30-plus yards on, and he was the fullback / tight end. I don't think he really played out of the tight end position a whole lot, but he caught a big pass and went down the sideline, and then they moved a little bit more, and then there's a George Aston shovel pass for a touchdown, which got things rolling very quickly.
That was at like the height of the shovel pass era too.
Oh yeah.
The Canada offense.
Yep.
The unofficial mascot.
Yeah, that's one of the most distinct memories I have of that game is everyone in our group turning to each other and being like shovel pass and like just going crazy just for that play. When did the word thick like really come into the sort of like zeitgeist? Like thick with like 3 C's.
Triple C
in the
thick.
past 2 years.
Yeah.
2018.
Jamar Parrish is like the classic example of a dude who was just thick. I mean,
So is Juan Price.
Yeah.
Juan Price looked like a thick dude. Like you look at his legs, dude looked like a freaking, what are those? A redwood tree, but like a really short redwood tree.
You had no choice but to look at his legs.
Yeah, because he cut his pants off.
Yeah. Who wears short shorts? Juan Price wears short shorts.
That's right. It's an intimidation factor.
Well, also, skies out, thighs out.
Always.
They're called shorts, not longs.
Amen. Speaking my language, Matt.
All right, so getting back to the game, Pitt goes up 7-0. Less than 2 minutes off the clock. It was a quick strike. Clemson comes down. They actually drive most of the length of the field. They've got a 2nd and 6 at the Pitt 13, and Deshaun Watson throws a pick in the end zone. Ryan Lewis, another pick in the end zone. Dude he loves touchbacks, apparently. But, I mean, how are you guys feeling at that point? So you're up 7-0. You get a turnover, but we're still only like 5 minutes into the game. Are you saying like, all right, this is fun, but they're going to get it together at some point? Or it's like, do we have a chance now?
There's no hope at that point at all.
Yeah,
it's wow, this was great, but I'm prepared to die.
This was also before our crew really got into sports gambling. Do you guys know what the line was to open this game?
21.5, I think.
It's big. Yeah. I mean, when that pick got thrown, I remember distinctly turning to Rob and going, well, it's not like he's going to throw 3 interceptions today.
Yeah. I do remember that.
He threw 2 interceptions in the red zone. Was the 3rd interception or like the middle interception, was that also in the red zone or?
No.
Yeah.
It was not. It was kind of a
No, they were getting
like the
close
30
because that
or
was
something.
that was the Avonte Maddox interception, and then Salim Brightwell had that huge interception at the end, which prevented a touchdown and brought it all the way back to like the 30-yard line or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was no hope at that point. It was like, oh, this is fun. They're gonna hang around for a quarter, maybe.
Yeah.
Even at halftime, like I said before, I really didn't think that they had a shot until 3 minutes left. I mean, I was just thinking the whole time, like, okay, we're going to fall apart like we typically do, and Clemson's going to become Clemson. But it just didn't happen. One thing, though, kind of rewinding a bit more to the George Aston shovel pass, is that the shovel pass was working very, very well for the first half. And then in the second half, it did not work well, like at all. Clemson, has shut down the shovel pass for most of the second half.
I think there were a couple big plays that came off shovel pass in the second half. There were 3 or 4 that broke very large.
Yeah.
It must have been at the beginning, because I remember watching the condensed today, and they had it pretty much on lock, from like the middle or whatever of the third quarter onward. There may have been 1 or 2, but, it was working pretty consistently. In the first half, it was not very consistent in the second.
It may have been less consistent, but I think they started using more variations of it, because Scott Orndorff caught a touchdown that way in the fourth quarter. It was very late.
That's the one that I remember.
Yeah, and then Aston, I believe, had a big gain early in the second half with the shovel pass too.
Yeah, Aston had that, receiving touchdown. Did he have the receiving touchdown in fourth down in the fourth quarter, or in the second half, or in the second quarter? Do you remember that touchdown I'm talking about? It was fourth down.
Yeah, that was in the second quarter.
Okay. Anyway, well, let's start at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, as we sort of move through the first half here, Pitt and Clemson sort of trade scoring drives. I'm looking through the game log here. I'm seeing all these names pop up. I mean, Deshaun Watson was such a force that season and just for Clemson in his career.
Him and Mike Williams. He was a beast.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit more about NFL guys in this game later on, but I mean, both Mike Williams and Deshaun Watson were top 12 NFL draft picks. Like those were the two guys, and also Wayne Gallman. Those three were the guys that I was most worried about. I mean, Watson in particular, he was just such a spectacular college player. He got invited to the Heisman ceremony once or twice, didn't
he? Yeah.
He was certainly worthy of it.
It's in. I know that off the top of my head.
I love the confidence and just the look on your face. Matt, you looked confused and sad when you said that.
That's kind of my state of being.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, Clemson kind of picked up their offense. Deshaun Watson got into a little bit of a rhythm in the first half here. Hunter Renfrow, which our friend Brett, that's like his favorite player in the world, for reasons that are unknown. He did a number on our slot corners. Who was our defensive coordinator at this point? Do you guys remember?
Was it still Conklin?
Yeah, it had to.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought his defense actually held up pretty well. Better than expected going into the game, right? I mean, it's not like they let Clemson score on every drive.
Well, that defense was, that whole year, it was the linebackers played fairly well and the line played fairly well. But, Narduzzi was still trying to push his system. He wasn't willing to change things up for those cornerbacks, and he inherited a lot of cornerbacks, which I think it's safe to say are probably guys he probably wouldn't recruit to Pitt.
But they're very little.
Yeah. Narduzzi likes, he likes all his cornerbacks to be over 6 feet. So it was just a mismatch based on the size of the Clemson wide receivers and the style Narduzzi was trying to make them play.
Yeah, and the 2 games prior to this one, they were getting torched against Virginia Tech. Like, that entire game was just lob passes to the outside, if you guys remember that. And there was a lot of thought there was some missed pass interference calls in that game that cost Pitt. There was some pretty bad ones, but that was kind of the name of the game all year. To beat Pitt is just throw outside lobs to your big receivers, and the little guys won't be able to catch up. And Deshaun Watson was able to do that with Mike Williams as well for a lot of the first half. And, well, really the entire game, but it was definitely working. And I would say the defense, I would say they were great. They were opportunistic for sure, is the word I wrote down for Pitt for this whole game, but really the defense. They gave up 580 passing yards. So not good.
Not great, Bobo. Not great.
Not great, but 3 interceptions and an overturned fumble pickup for a touchdown by Jordan Whitehead, which got overturned, which is insane. I think that happened in the second quarter? Was that when
first quarter?
That was still the first quarter. So I remember looking. It was hard to know, I think, because I don't know if they actually showed the replay on the Jumbotron in Death Valley. But looking at the replay of the game in the condensed version, I remember watching a condensed version of the game when we got back to Pittsburgh as well. There was no conclusive evidence that ball passed the line. There was a player blocking that, being able to see the ball, and then you just see the ball like pop out when it's out of their hands, and they gave it to Clemson. I mean, that should have been a fumble recovery for a touchdown. I just don't know how they overturned that call on the field.
That still to this day is one of my biggest, like, if I had to point to a play where you go, they did not call this by the way the play is, or the way the rule is written, it's that one, because, it clearly says you must have, 100% conclusive, evidence.
Indisputable evidence.
Yeah, whatever the term is. But, yeah, because I think everyone agrees. Did he get it? Probably. I am very confident saying that ball broke the plane, but I'm assuming a lot.
Yeah, you can't see it. In any of the camera angles, you can't see it. It probably happened, but you cannot see it.
Yeah, so.
And that's a 14-point swing because they scored on the next play.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. That would have been
they scored that same play.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Whitehead picks it up, goes down the right side, zigs across the left side, and boom, he's in the end zone.
So what, Pitt would have been up 21-7 instead of tied 14-14? Is that what it was?
I
think so.
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
Before we move out of the first half here, I just want to call out 2 of the scoring plays that we haven't talked about for Pitt yet. So tied 7-7, Peterman to Connor on a 46-yard wheel route where he was not touched. There wasn't a defender within like 10 yards of him for the entire play. That one felt pretty good. I mean, still sort of on the mindset of like, all right, this is still fun, but probably still going to lose. The deep pass that Scott Orndorff caught for Pitt's next score to put it at 21-14. I think he juggled it a little bit, or there was a bit of a tip ball or something where he came down on like it was probably 40 yards in the air and then just walks in the end zone because the defender falls over.
Was that when they were booing about the push off, or was that later?
No, that's they were booing about unnecessary roughness call against Ben.
Okay.
Ben,
but I think that they were upset about that Scott Orndorff, because I know what you're talking about here. He's on the right sideline. The defender falls down. I think that even the announcers mentioned like if he got away with a push off or something there. I think that was a contentious or a kind of a questionable situation, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the only time I remember them really talking about push offs was with Jester Wea.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about that in a minute. But it's something to note here that Orndorff pass, it was 55 yards for a TD. That was the third score. There were still about 10 minutes left in the second quarter, but Chris Blewett missed the PAT. That's sort of when the math started to look a little funky, which turns out to be kind of a big factor down the stretch. And we'll talk about that as we move into the fourth quarter.
So another fun anecdote. Whenever he missed that extra point, I distinctly remember turning to Rob and going, well, it's not going to be a 1-point game, so it doesn't really matter.
Little did we know.
There's sort of a meme in the NFL that the Seahawks never play a normal game. Every game that they're involved in, it's some weird sort of score. It's like 12-7, 19-17. Just like, it's not even in terms of like field goals, touchdowns, that sort of thing. There's always like a missed PAT or a 2-point conversion. I feel like Pitt is sort of in the same boat with that,
I think Pitt's in that boat in the sense that it's never textbook for them in any way, shape, or form, and the score follows that, I guess.
Yeah, we're not winning a game like 28-21.
Well, another thing I remember too about that missed PAT is that when Chris Blewett kicked off that next, to the next play, he did not have a good strike on his kick, and I think it like bounced at like the 10-yard line, and then the return man picked it up, but he had two pretty not great kicks back to back. But
you know what we got out of that though?
A Narduzzi kiss.
Patting our smoochie.
Yeah.
What a great way to say that.
Just right on the cheek.
So, here we're talking about how great things were, but like I watched that first half and I thought the entire time, like the Pitt offense looked not great. Like they could barely move the ball with any, cadence. It was all these like chunk plays and like, they took advantage of the opportunities, but they were not moving the ball on like a normal drive. Like they weren't getting 3 first downs and then a big play. It was, we're going to lose 5 yards, pick up 3 more, and then a 55-yard touchdown. And that was the only way they were scoring. Clemson was by far the better team in the first half. Pitt just had 2 turnovers, which proved very beneficial and costly to Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the turnover. It was on that next drive that Avonte Maddox picked off Deshaun Watson. That was the second INT in the first half. The next play right after that was a James Conner run for 26 yards. And is this sort of James Conner's like national coming out party? Is this the game that when people think of James Conner, like, oh yeah, I remember watching him against Clemson on ABC or whatever?
I think you could say it's his national reclamation game, but his coming out game would have been in 2014 in some capacity.
I think you're right.
Because he was still a shell of himself at that point. He got better every single game in 2016, but he never got anywhere close to the level he was in 2014.
Yeah, he never got back to that level.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting way to frame it, and I would actually argue that this was a high for him. Like, I think he did get to that level in this game specifically.
Maybe. I don't know. I just feel he definitely had, and so that run that you're talking about right now, Ian, that long run, I remember him just bowling somebody over in the middle of the field. But I don't feel like he had many of those types of hits in that game. Whereas I look at like the Duke game at home, and I look at some of his other games that he played where he was just obliterating people on the field. And I don't really feel that he had that type of game, which he was known for as a running back. I mean, he obviously had the touchdown catch. He had the touchdown run, which we'll probably talk about later, where he stiff-armed the guy into the ground, and by like some force of magic, that guy just immediately popped up if you watch the slow-mo replay, it doesn't look real. It looks like a video game glitch. But I don't know. It didn't feel like he had as many of those massive hits, those, types of runs that he typically does. And it's, again, because, Clemson's defense, that year and for many years was just so big and so strong. I think you just kind of saw that, James Conner was toying with little boys, most of the games. And here's a, bigger – I shouldn't say that. James Conner was not toying with little boys ever. He was just making people look like children on the football field with his strength.
I zoned out for a minute, and I come into just hearing that little phrase. So that's where I'm at right now.
Oh my gosh,
Ian, I definitely get what you're saying. Like, he had some of those moments in this game for sure. But the game itself as a whole collection was not like a James Conner show. He was a big part of Pitt's performance, but it was not one of his dominating signature performances as an individual. He had his moments, but I think Clemson did a good job neutralizing the ways that all the Pitt weapons could beat them. It's just that there were some that slipped out. Like James Conner slipped out on that, long touchdown catch in the first quarter. And then, Jamar Parrish slipped out and, they couldn't cover all the shovel passes to George Aston and Scott Orndorff because they were doing some different motions. I think Clemson did exactly what they wanted to do. They took James Conner and Nate Peterman basically out of the game, and they made them do some ridiculous things to get all the way there.
I think who they really took out of the game was Quadri Henderson. I felt that he was a non-factor in that game. I think if you're talking about Clemson's defense neutralizing weapons, I think they neutralized Quadri Henderson extremely well. And I think it's, one of the reasons they could do that is just how fast they are, right? Their defense is just so fast. Quadri Henderson, with his burning speed wasn't going to be able to necessarily have as big of an advantage over their defense as, other defenses that Pitt had seen up to then.
Yeah,
but
16 was really the year of the shovel pass and the jet sweep. They
exactly.
loved the jet sweep like crazy.
And that was the year too when Quadri Henderson had, all those returns for touchdowns, right?
Yeah, they didn't kick the ball to him at all or really give him anything to return.
Exactly.
I want to close out the James Conner talk there for a minute. He ended up getting drafted the spring after this game in the third round by the Steelers, I believe.
Yep.
Never really healthy the whole year. I think he admitted as much, right? That
at the end of the season, he did, yes.
Yeah, that he was still sort of getting his sea legs back from both his knee injury and from his chemotherapy treatments. And I think we sort of saw that as he got into his Steelers career that wow, this dude's actually in great shape again, and he looks like the bell cow that we saw in 2014. Was it Rob that you said? But yeah, some spectacular highlights from James Conner. So yeah, we end the first half with Clemson leading 28-27. Pitt had they had actually drove down the field on the last drive of the first half, got it to the Clemson 35, and then they blocked a long Chris Blewett field goal at the buzzer.
Well, the crazy part with that block was that Dabo was trying to call a timeout. The refs didn't notice him.
Yeah.
And we can talk about Chris Blewett more later on, but a 53-yard attempt is well within his range.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So it's conceivable that they could have taken the lead at halftime. But how were you guys feeling at that point, only being down by 1 point?
That was fun.
Yeah, I felt in a good way surprised, but in no way confident that it was something we could hold on to.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things why I think this is the most exciting game to watch, is, even in the first half, there's a lot of, there's a lot of scoring, but it's not these like, Big 12 offenses just gunslinging with no defense. It was a really fun game to watch. And I just remember, it was like, wow, that was really fun. Holy cow. We're only down by 1 at halftime.
Mm-hmm. Ian, how did you feel? Like, you've been asking the questions, but how did you feel at that moment?
I mean, I was still I was trying to tamp down my expectations, kind of like you guys were. I definitely came into the game. I mean, Clemson was number 2, undefeated, like 9-0, 8-0, something like that at that point. I think it was clear to everyone that they were on the road to the playoff. They were going to win the ACC, and Pitt's coming in at 5-4. I was really just down there for the barbecue and to hang out with you guys in a new setting. It turned out to be a great trip, and we ended up getting the win, which just was like the cherry on top. But I mean, kind of like Steve said, like it was back and forth the first half. So I was just like, you know what? This has been a great trip anyway. This is wonderful. Even if we get blown out in the second half, like this is awesome. We kind of had our good couple rounds in the fight, and we get knocked out, fine. I think Steve is on record in the past saying that you really enjoy like hard-hitting defensive games. Mm-hmm. So was it just the fact that we were such a big underdog and staying in it for so long that kind of had you up for this?
Yeah, I mean, I still think that there was a lot of good defense to watch in the game, right? There was still some big hits and fun things to see on the defensive side of the ball. So I think the fact that I was enjoying it so much was the fact that we were just hanging in there. That was fun. And the thing too is it wasn't like they weren't scoring super comfortably and neither were we, right? There was still this kind of like, oh my gosh, are we going to be able to score? So that kind of, hope, or it doesn't seem likely, makes every single touchdown that much more exciting, because it's like, holy cow, how do we even do that? So I think the fact that we were such big underdogs, the fact that it was so close, I think that's what was most exciting. The defense probably wasn't as like big a factor in the game. Like it wasn't as exciting a defense to watch as like maybe like a Pitt Virginia Tech game. Those games are always fun from that perspective. But I think it was some of the defensive aspects that I like were certainly still there in the game.
Right. So before we move into the second half, one point that we haven't really touched on is that this was Clemson's senior day. We watched all the seniors run down that hill in the end zone. They touched the rock and did the whole thing.
Who knows the name of the rock?
Howard's Rock?
Yeah.
I mean, what did you guys think overall of just sort of like the game day atmosphere? Their stadium is not as big as I thought it was. And then sort of the senior day aspect to it. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I think that's one of the best environments in college football. Just they cram them in there. The student section's really unique because they don't actually have seats. They're all standing on the hill in the grass. And just, it feels like a big time atmosphere. I would love to go back down there when Pitt plays there again. And I can't say that about a ton of the places I've gone and seen a game where it's like every time Pitt's there, that is a must go. I
will say that I was a little disappointed that it was senior day because I thought it kind of broke up the whole pageantry of what their intro and pregame was, because they kind of ran down and then they're like, okay, well, let's do this kind of senior day thing. And it seems to just kind of break up the whole intensity of the pregame. So I was a little disappointed in that, but it was still cool. The fans were awesome. Everyone was super loud. And yeah, I mean, it was still very, very cool.
I definitely thought it was one of the best game experiences we've ever had. I think the lot we tailgated in was awesome. It was a very prime location. We backed up against that grass area, but then the whole game day thing, it's really the only thing going on there at that time. There's nothing else happening, and so many people are there, and the fans were very nice and hospitable, and I really enjoyed it. And even it's a nice stadium. It's nothing like write home about, but it's a classic college stadium where you feel close to the action, not like Heinz Field where every seat is a million miles away from the field.
I think that's a good way to characterize it. It's a classic college atmosphere. I don't know if I agree with Matt that it's like one of the toughest places to play from like an atmosphere perspective. I think it's really tough to play because their team is always good. I probably wouldn't put it on the list with like the Horseshoe or was it LSU Stadium in the Bayou or like Auburn or Alabama or something, because I mean those places are like 100,000 people just like drunk off their ass. Like
Penn State.
Yeah, Penn State too.
They get super insanely loud.
Yeah. I didn't get quite that same feel from Clemson, but I mean you could absolutely tell like those are passionate fans, and they were like they're invested every cent in that team.
Going off of that, kind of going back to, I think we referenced it earlier in the conversation, is when they would boo after every single play later in the second half. Like the entire fan base did that. And it was for every single play. I was kind of like, wow, this is insane. But I was also at the same time thinking, wow, that's actually very coordinated amongst them that they're all doing this after every single play because they were pissed at the refs.
To be fair, what caused them to do that was a pretty bad call.
Yeah. It was just interesting how they continued to do it for many, many plays afterwards.
I think we lost Ian.
No, I'm still here.
Oh.
I'm preparing a tropical beverage to meet my tropical background.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, moving along into the second half here. We see a couple touchdowns early in the third quarter. Quick strike from Clemson. Their wide receiving core was so much more talented. I think Rob touched on that point than our secondary. I'm still kind of surprised that they didn't score on every drive. But I think there was a pass interference against on the person who was guarding Jester Weah. A couple other chunk plays here, but then I think this was the drive where it was the Scott Orndorff shovel pass.
I love that face he makes after he scores, because this is amongst the entire booing after every play, and he just kind of like scowls at the audience because he was going into the end zone that was not surrounded by Pitt fans in the corner. It was just all Clemson fans, and he just goes like with this big scowl on his face and just turns around. Love that.
Yeah. So I think we should talk about what kind of led to that booing. So I can't remember the guy's last name. Ben
Boulware.
Yeah, Ben Boulware.
So he had this reputation in 2016 as being a really like hard-nosed, hitting, almost to the point of being dirty player. And so I think he ends up getting called for a unnecessary roughness when really all he did was pull the guy to the ground after the whistle, but he was in the process of tackling him. 99 times out of 100, no one would ever make that call. But I think because of how he had been playing that year and the reputation he had developed, they were on a real short whistle with him. And I don't think they were going to give him any benefit of the doubt that he was just making the play and wasn't trying to do something extra with it.
So Matt, do you think that in hindsight that was a good call or a bad call by the referees?
Oh, I think it was an atrocious call. And also, so I think it was a bad call, but then you also look at the situation in which the call happened. That was a third down play for Pitt. They were going to be punting the ball if they don't throw that flag. So that extended Pitt's drive and led to a touchdown. So that was such a lucky moment for Pitt.
Had he had any similar hits earlier in the game?
No, he'd been fairly he had a couple big hits, but he'd been pretty quiet, hadn't he?
I wonder if that's because, again, I used to ref soccer. I was a certified referee in soccer, and like one of the things we'd have to go to this, conference after you get your certification to kind of you get spoken to for like however many hours to get your learning in, and then you take the test again. But I remember like the discussion being about, if certain, and obviously the game of soccer is very, very different than football, but if there's a player with like a history of like he plays to the first yellow card and then, he calms down, like it's your discretion as the ref. Like if he does a really hard tackle that you wouldn't normally give a yellow card, but could debatably be a yellow card, like you give that to the person. I wonder if the referees were going to like call that on him so things didn't escalate because of the prior, reputation.
If I had to guess, if I could have watched the full game, I'm sure I might have seen something. Now that I'm thinking, I do think there were one or two real hard hits. So I'm wondering if he maybe got a warning from the refs in that first half.
Exactly. Something like that.
Yeah. Cause it just seemed, out of nowhere, especially, 3.5 years down the line, watching a replay of it.
Yep.
And to put a pretty hard generalization out there, because that's what we do on this podcast, he was one of those white middle linebackers who wore the grease like all down his cheeks and stuff. I mean, like Matt said, that was kind of his reputation at the time. He was the guy on SportsCenter that you saw like taking somebody's helmet off. So Steve, I think you're right in that assessment of sort of playing to the first yellow card. I bet he did get a warning at some point.
Yeah. Because, I mean, especially at the college level and above, all these refs know the reputation of these players leading into the game, right? Because it's so well documented. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. All right, so moving along here. Clemson has a nice long drive. Wayne Gallman goes in for a 1-yard TD. They go up 42-34 with about a minute and a half left in the third. Is this the point where you say, okay, this has been fun?
So my moment for that was actually at the 10:48 mark when Nate Peterman fumbles the ball over to Clemson. That was kind of my this is where Clemson's going to finally, put the pedal to the metal, take away the game from us. So I was kind of already in that state of mind at that point.
Yeah, Clemson gets a quick strike after that to go up 35-27, but then Pitt comes back and they score TD. And it was 35-34 for a little while.
So the drive where Scott Orndorff scored the touchdown was Pitt's best collective drive of the game, I thought, where they drove down the field and kind of put it all together. They did get the benefit on that call, but it was a 75-yard drive that lasted 5 minutes and was 11 plays. That's definitely the one that's their best drive of the game when they needed it to be as well. But I definitely think when Wayne Gallman scored that last touchdown, I thought it was over, because not only was Pitt running out of luck because they had gotten some fortunate things to happen for them, just that Clemson would start to clamp down on Pitt's throat, so to say, during the fourth quarter, up 8 with the offense that they had, that we were going to get a 14 to 21 point game in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that brings us pretty much to the end of the third quarter. That was it was not quite as high scoring as either of the first half quarters, but do you recall if we played Sweet Caroline there? What was the sort of the fan vibe in the stadium there?
I think the band played Sweet Caroline.
Yeah, I think I remember that happening.
Does Clemson do anything special for their third quarter break?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember anything like that.
No. Yeah, they're not like Virginia Tech where they do the hokey pokey.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we begin the fourth quarter. Clemson has the ball just about midfield, and they're up 42-34. We stopped them on that third down, and they punt to us. We then trade 3 punts back in a row, and then Deshaun Watson gets picked off again. You guys want to talk about that Salim Brightwell play?
Yes. So I believe Salim Brightwell is a sophomore at this point. In this,
true freshman.
He's a true freshman. So he had been – was he a starting outside linebacker at this point? No?
He was in there because someone was injured for the Clemson game, I thought.
Yeah. Because it was what? Salim Brightwell, Nat Columbus, and who was the third linebacker?
Was Bam Bradley on that team?
I feel like he had graduated by then.
The year before?
Was
Nicholas Grigsby?
Yeah, Freeze was on that team.
Freeze. Yeah. Either way, I just remember the fact that the speed. I mean, he had kind of come into Pitt as being a fast linebacker, like that was kind of known about him. But he gets that interception. I'm trying to think of, outside of like a scoring play, I think that's the most critical play of the game because, Clemson, it's the fourth quarter. Clemson's in the red zone. They're trying to put the nail in the coffin. Like, all right, let's win this game. Salim Brightwell comes up with the interception. And not only does he just take possession, he turns on the burners and gets all the way down to the opposite 30-yard line. And he's got a Clemson wide receiver chasing him and barely trips him up by his shoelaces. I mean, this wide receiver can't get two arms on him. Literally just does a swipe and takes out his legs. I mean, I just remember thinking about the speed, and I think Salim Brightwell was probably looked like he was 5 or 6 inches shorter than that wide receiver too. So that was crazy.
It was a beautiful. Oh, go ahead, Ian.
No, I was just going to say that I think Salim he picked off Deshaun Watson. They had the ball at our 3-yard line, caught the ball maybe a yard or two deep in the end zone on the. I guess if you're facing the defense on the right side of the field, Mike Williams ran from the opposite corner of the end zone, basically diagonally up all the way across the field. Matt?
Yeah, I mean, it was really a textbook interception. He was following the quarterback, and he jumped that route just perfectly, hopped right in front of the receiver to get that. And honestly, I think him getting, shoestring tackled was a real blessing in disguise for Pitt because it let the defense get off the field and actually catch their breath, after, going up against the Clemson offense for a few minutes. So I think if he scores that, I think Clemson would have came out and just scored right away because I think they would have been a little gassed.
And it just eats more clock, right, as well.
Yeah.
And there's that. And I think that's what led to the fourth down George Aston touchdown.
No, so the next series, beginning on Clemson's 30.
Oh, no, that's the James Conner video game glitch touchdown.
Yes, it was Peterman incomplete to Aaron Matthews, Peterman incomplete to Scott Orndorff, Peterman incomplete to Jester Weah, but there was a holding penalty on Clemson that gave us a first down on the 20. And that's like you said, the video game glitch, James Conner run. I think that might be my favorite moment from his career, just on the field.
Yeah.
I think because of the circumstance and the emotion around it, yes, I would agree with that, Ian. But I would say my favorite run by James Conner is when he basically gave CTE to 3 different Duke defenders at home at Heinz Field, I think. But yes, emotionally, Ian, I agree with you.
Yeah.
We'll,
with that play, though, and I think Rob will beat this drum, too. I still don't think Aaron Matthews gets enough credit for what he did on that play.
So
huge block.
huge block, like the biggest block on a run you've ever seen in your entire life.
He's a freshman at this point, right?
Yeah.
True freshman. I mean, I think that whole play was set up by a lot of other guys. James made he made the one stiff arm, but there was a ton of great blocking out way in front of him for the lane to be cleared for him to score that. So, and definitely Aaron Matthews was a huge part of it. Not only was Aaron Matthews on that play huge, but Ryan Winslow was a huge part of Pitt's success during the second half. And Aaron Matthews made 2 tackles as soon as the Clemson player caught it on 2 different punts during the second half. So I think I have Winslow and Aaron Matthews as 2 of my 4 guys who should be named players of the game.
Nice. Yeah, Winslow doesn't get enough run in his entire career. I think now living with a couple years of Kirk Christodoulou, it's clear looking back at Ryan Winslow and his performance as the Pitt punter that he was pretty good.
Super consistent.
Yeah.
Mr. Consistent.
So James Conner run for 20 yards for a TD, epic score. That puts us at 5 minutes and 17 seconds left in the game. That 6 points puts us at Clemson 42, Pitt 40. They go for 2 and they miss it. So this is, again, sort of where the numbers start to get a little funky. Do you guys have any issues with them going for 2 at that point?
No. I mean, if you go for the extra point, you're still down 1 score. And if you go for 2 and you get it, you have the potential to at least force overtime. So, I mean, that is the right call every single time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that unlike in the Penn State game in 2019, Pat Narduzzi was doing the math correctly on what he should do.
Oh, man.
Yes, I agree. That was the correct call. So with regards to we're going to wrap up here in a minute, but with regards to those numbers, Clemson drives down the field. They have a 3rd and 1 at the Pitt 35. They don't convert. So it's 4th and 1 with 1 minute left. And they opt to go for it on 4th down, and they don't convert. I mean, that was a huge stop by the Pitt defense. Well, what did you guys think about Dabo Swinney's decision to go for it there?
He got super conservative. I mean, that whole drive was them just trying to run the clock out when they should have just been trying to get first downs. I mean, when they ran the ball on the 4th down, Deshaun Watson had thrown the ball 70 times that game. And
wow,
he was completing them at an insane clip, and Pitt could not stop the wide receivers. There's no reason you should be running the ball in any situation there. I mean, you're up. Your defense has been playing well. I don't think that they should have stopped, but they got super conservative and ran it like 3 of the 4 plays on that set of downs, and Pitt was able to come through in the clutch and make a stop.
Yeah, the play call was baffling to me because of the mismatch of their wide receivers and our corners, for them to not try to target Williams. It just didn't make any sense. And I think they pitched the ball too. It wasn't just a handoff run. They actually pitched it. So they had even farther distance to run the ball. And inexplicable. I mean, obviously good for us. We ended up stopping them, but I did not understand how they called that at all.
Yeah, that's kind of that play call, I guess, in the Pitt universe is like the equivalent of whatever the heck his name was, the offensive coordinator we just fired last season.
Oh, yeah.
Sean Watson.
Sean Watson.
Yeah, that's like the equivalent of him running a jet sweep at Penn State when you're on like your own 5. Like,
yeah,
it just there's no way that should ever be the play you're going for, especially with how the rest of the game shakes up. But I mean, they would have been better off sneaking it up the middle 2 plays in a row. I mean, Deshaun Watson's a big guy. I think he easily could have gotten the 1 yard they need.
I think they should have been going 4-5 wide shotgun and spread Pitt's defense out. And if they try to blitz you and stop you from rushing that 1 yard, you throw it to someone that was catching a ton of balls that day. And then if they do try to cover everybody, just sneak up the middle. Like, there's so many better options than condensing everything down into 10 by 10 yard box.
So I will say, I do think that at that point in the game, I think Deshaun Watson's arm was turning into a little bit of jello, because if you watch that second half, there are a lot of short throws by Watson to his receivers. And I'm talking like short to the point that they're basically at his receiver's feet and they're having to dive to the ground to catch them. So I think that might have factored in a little, but, they still could have done a quick dump, just
And
something,
you also,
anything other than what they actually did.
Also, like, when you're in that situation, you put the ball in the hands of your best player. And he was arguably the best player in college football that year. You let him win or lose the game for you, not Wayne Gallman and your third tight end blocking.
Yeah, I think one point in Dabo's favor is that I think they had generally been considered the best offensive line in the country to that point in 2016. But that specific play call, I'm with you guys in that. Why do you pitch it out wide instead of trusting your guys and just fighting for 1 yard? Sort of strange, but it worked out for us. Like we said, that puts us at 58 seconds left in the game. We have a 1st and 10 on our own 36-yard line. At this point, I think everybody knows we're only down by 2 points. It's 42-40, so we only need a field goal. We only need maybe 30 yards. A couple of we start off the drive with a Peterman run out of bounds for 9 yards, call a timeout. And then, Rob, is Scott Orndoff on your list of MVPs?
Yes, sorry, technical difficulties. So my 4 are Aston, Orndoff, Matthews, and Winslow. Those are the guys who were the players of the game.
Orndoff comes down with a 21-yard catch to the Clemson 34. And I think that puts us solidly within Chris Blewett's range even at that point.
They did not stop trying to move the ball further at that point either. They were very aggressive the last couple of plays.
Correct. They hit Scott Orndoff for 4 more yards and then had a couple incompletions, but they ended up kicking the field goal from the Clemson 30. There were 6 seconds left on the clock, so we did have to kick off to them again. It was a squib kick, though, so they ran out the clock just on the kickoff. Any comments on Chris Blewett in that moment, kind of how you felt, and then maybe Chris Blewett overall as a player?
I mean, I remember like physically shaking leading up to that touchdown. Like, my legs were a little wobbly. I kept sitting down, standing up, sitting down, standing up. Just because I think that's probably one of the biggest, plays that any of us have ever witnessed in, going to Pitt football games. Like this is your make or break moment kind of deal. So I was so high strung.
Yeah, I remember being so anxious, but it was, I don't think as anxious as, other games, because again, I still had this mindset of even if we lose, we didn't think we were going to win and all this, it still was close, but I was still super, super anxious and very, very tense, standing up. It was crazy.
I think I differ from you on that, Steve, in the fact that considering the point Pitt was at, if they lose it then, when, basically, they control their own destiny at that point. And so if they would have lost at that point and played as well as they did for the rest of the game, I would have walked out of that game absolutely furious.
Yeah, I think I'm closer to Steve. A 48-yard field goal with 6 seconds left. I think you're walking out with money either way. And I think that was really the moment where I sort of let all of my emotions sort of wash over me. And that was a cool feeling. So, Bob?
I just share what Matt said. It was nerve-wracking, and I did capture it on video, which is something I'll always cherish. The fan reaction. It was fun.
You should try and tweet that out when we put out the pod.
I'll upload it to YouTube. I doubt it would fit in a tweet. But I can try.
Yeah, I remember kind of on the capturing moment. I remember making a Snapchat story the day before, and right before going to bed in the Holiday Inn Express that I was staying at, I took a Snapchat, laying on the bed of like the TV, and just saying, tonight we rest in Greensboro. Tomorrow we conquer in Clemson. And then the next thing on my story from the next day is the photo of the half-empty stadium with people on the field and the score of the game, 43-42. It was the greatest, I think, moment of Pitt football history that I ever got to experience in person. I think it was probably one of the greatest trips that the four of us have been on. And I'm glad we got to, share it with you guys on this episode. Be sure to keep listening to the Full Pitt podcast to get you through this, coronavirus situation. We're going to be recording some more of this stuff and hopefully putting up some more YouTube comments. You can follow us on Twitter at Full of Pitt. You can email us fullofpitt@gmail.com. And of course, you can follow all of us individually on Twitter as well. You can follow Rob at Badabing94, Matt at Saxman4L, and Ian at Ian_O'Neill. You can follow me at FOP Steve. From the whole FOP crew, thank you for listening to Season 4, Episode 2. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers. So,
COVID.
Public service announcement. If you steal my jokes from Twitter, you will be blocked, and you will not be a friend of the Full of Pitt podcast. If you're listening, you know who you are.
And you've already been blocked.
Don't steal our content, you jagoffs.
And for those who aren't following us on Twitter, follow us because the CTO, our chief Twitter officer, Matt, has been putting out some fire tweets recently.
So much to the point that we are the fake news now.
Yeah. Suck it, CNN.
Yeah. Pitt compliance. If you guys are working from home, come on the
Follow
podcast.
us.
Yeah, we'll send you our Zoom meeting invite.
Come on the Zoomcast.
All right, goodbye.
See you guys.
Boston, Mass.
Hi, guys.